Good morning. My name's Todd Covert, and it is my privilege to lead you in worship this Sunday morning. Let's begin our service today by acknowledging that this physical church stands on land taken from its original inhabitants, members of the Tataviam, Chumash, and Quiche peoples. Forces of colonialism, racism, and imperialism stole their land and decimated their languages and traditions. We did not bear witness to what was lost, but as they were stewards of this land, let us honor them by working to heal the damages wrought upon it. As they drew inspiration from this land, let us honor them by working to heal and honor what is precious in it in our own worship. Let us pledge to work to honor those who carry their traditions and support efforts to restore land to them, that they may rebuild their communities and we may be privileged to learn with humility from their customs. Let it be so. Let's start this morning's service a bit differently than usual. On the table in front of you here in the sanctuary, and hopefully those of you joining us on Zoom can see it, are 4 bowls containing Legos of 4 different colors: red, blue, green, and yellow. In a moment, I'm going to invite you, as you are willing and able, to come forward. Choose one of the colors, take a piece, and place it in the bowl in the center. Don't think too hard about it. Just pick a color, pick a piece, and place it in the bowl in the center. If you are not able to come forward physically to take a piece, I hope that you will ask a neighbor to help you out and pick a piece of your choosing and place it in the bowl for you. And for those of you joining online on the Zoom app, pick one of those colors, red, green, yellow, blue, and type it into the chat. Let's let at least everybody on Zoom see what your choice is. All right. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to come forward. And as you do this, as you pick your Lego and place it in the bowl, Hap Palmer and Kevin Mathie are going to play Hap's composition, Come Gather Round. Please now, as you're willing and able, come forward and choose a color.
Come gather round, come join us now, guided in freedom by reason and choice. Come gather round, come join us now, to value each person and hear every voice. Pagans and Christians, Hindus and Buddhists, Muslims and Jews, all non-believers, join in this colorful bouquet of you. Come gather round, come join us now, respecting all life, we stand unified. Come enter now this sacred place, where freedom of thought will not be denied. Dreamers and doubters, seekers and searchers of beauty and grace. Come evolving and changing. If you're still growing, you found the right way. Come gather round, come join us now, each guided in freedom by reason and choice. Come gather round, come join us now, to value each person and hear every voice. Hear every voice.
Thank you. When you chose a color, why did you choose it? If you chose yellow, did it remind you of the hot summer sun? If you chose blue, did it feel calming to you? If you chose red or green, was it your favorite color? Each of us chose for different reasons. What guided our hands was unique to us. May not even be known to us. In the end, though, we are all guided to contribute in our own way to this colorful mosaic. And so too, each of us are brought together this morning for our own reasons, but here together we are, one community, and now let us worship together. We begin our worship, as Unitarian Universalists around the globe do, with the lighting of our chalice, the symbol of our faith, a flame of inspiration in the vessel of community. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit as we light our chalice, and then please remain upstanding for the recitation of our congregational covenant, first in English and then in Spanish.
The words for our chalice lighting are Different Yet United by Pat Uribe Lichty. We come from many places, along different paths, bringing different truths. We come with different histories and different realities, and yet we come together as one people, with faith that we can use our differences to heal ourselves and each other, to bring wholeness to a fractured world. We come seeking to find community, to find acceptance of who we are. In this place, we might find others who are much like us, and others who are much different. May our lit chalice remind us that we are a people taught by different stories, with many voices, but always one people working for a world where love creates justice and justice brings birth to peace. Now please join me in reciting our congregational covenant, first in English, then in Spanish. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, thus do we covenant. La doctrina de esta iglesia es el amor. La búsqueda de la verdad es su sacramento, y el servicio es su oración. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar el conocimiento en libertad, servir a la humanidad en comunión. Este es nuestro pacto.
So let's join in our first hymn of the morning, gathered here. It's number 389 in the gray hymnal. Let's try singing it as a round. So let's see, we'll start first group from the aisle over, then this mighty quintet here, and then we got a quartet over here. All right, so we'll start over here, then join in after the first line sung, and then join in after they've sung the first line. Cross your fingers, let's see if we can pull this off. Take it away.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Tracy Watson. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm happy to serve as your worship associate today. Emerson is a progressive, spiritual community with a long history serving the West Valley. It is a place where we can come together with the goal of living our deepest values, such as justice and inclusion for all, to the greatest extent we can. None of us has all the answers, and so we continue to work toward finding meaning together, talk about life's big questions, and ask ourselves how we can work together to make a difference. Today, we're enjoying a lay-led service plus a sermon by one of your fellow congregants. In his last months with us, Reverend Mathie, along with Todd Covert, led a sermon writing class. Today's service is being led by Todd Covert, the chair of Emerson's Worship Associates. It is the first of a series of 5 Sunday services featuring sermons written as part of the recent shared pulpit class led by Todd and Reverend Mathie. The 4 Emersonians who completed the class will present their sermons on 4 consecutive Sundays, July 21 and 28, and August 4th and 11th. We hope you will join us as Stephanie Bunker, Tess Lotta, Philip Koretsky, and Julie Borden each take to the pulpit to share their work. I very much look forward to seeing what those class members have come up with, starting with Todd this morning on the topic of why we gather together. For me, the difference between communing alone in nature and coming together in a church community is like the difference between taking a hike and marching in a parade. Both have value and meaning, but one is more about soul searching, and the other is about the insight and encouragement and inspiration we gain from coming together. We each have our own reasons for gathering together, and I'm excited to hear what Todd has to say, to share his. It's good to see those of you who are here in person, and we want to extend a warm welcome to those of you joining us online as well. Please note that as of July, we have a new meeting ID for Zoom 1. The new meeting ID can be found in this week's e-blast, and live.emersonuuc.org will continue to direct you to the correct room. There will be no change in Zoom 2. I want to extend a special welcome to those of you who are new here. If you didn't have a chance to sign the guest book, we invite you to do so in the foyer or by following the link in the chat. We hope you will join us for our coffee hour after the service in the pavilion behind those doors to your left. And those of you on Zoom can stick around to chat in breakout rooms for our virtual coffee hour. In a moment, I'm going to invite you to greet your neighbors. If you have a joy or sorrow you would like shared aloud with the congregation later in our service, you can take this time to write it in our Book of Life, located on the table behind the piano, or online in the chat. Let us now greet our neighbors in the spirit of welcome.
And one other thing, while you're greeting your neighbors or writing in the Book of Life, for those of you who might have joined us after the start of worship, if you want to select a colored Lego and put it in the bowl in the center, now's a good time to do that. So please play catch up on the Legos.
It's good to be together this morning. And now we have our story for all ages.
As Tracy said a bit earlier in her welcome, this week we're looking at the reasons and ways that we come together for our Sunday worship, grown-ups and kids alike. As part of that, we'll be sharing some words drawn from the history of our Unitarian Universalist traditions, the history of our UU faith community. Faith, belief. We use those words a lot. Do they mean the same thing? Are they different from knowing? Do we know that the sky is blue? Sure. When we say the sun will come up in the morning, do we know? Or do we have faith? And when we say we have faith in something, we don't just mean we believe in it, we trust in it. When we say faith, we mean trust. We belong to a community of faith, a community in which we all trust one another, in which we offer promises to one another, in which we have love for one another. Belief is something a little harder to pin down. It's not quite the same as knowing. It's not quite the same as faith. It's something still, though, we depend on, that we feel sure of, and that we think is part of our life and the world we live in. Unitarian Universalists come together with lots of beliefs, lots of different beliefs. Beliefs about the afterlife, what comes after this life, beliefs about whether there's something divine watching over or guiding or planning this world. Way back in the 1930s, the Unitarian Church back then, there was no UU community just yet, published some children's stories. They revolved around two neighbor kids, Martin and Judy. And so I'm going to share one of those stories from 1939, 85 years ago, if my math is right. Martin and Judy, it was called Off to the Duck Pond. And let's see if we can't figure out what it has to say about whether we know something, believe something will happen, and whether we have control over whether it happens. Judy and Martin's mother were going for a walk. They were going for a walk to the pond. They were going to see the ducks. Up the hill they went, step, step, step. Down the hill they went, run, run, run. Over the wall they went, climb, climb, climb. We're almost there, said Martin. Soon we shall see the pond. They went up the path that led to the trees. They went down the path between the trees. Judy and Martin's mother said, we are almost there. We will go up the path between the trees, then we will look for the pond. They went down the path beyond the trees. They looked for the pond. They looked for the ducks. They looked and looked again. They did not see any pond at all. They did not see any ducks. They saw just one big puddle of mud. What has happened to the pond? Asked Martin. What has happened to the ducks? Asked Judy. Judy and Martin's mother looked and looked again. I did not think, Martin's mother said, that the pond would be so dry. We've had many days of hot sunshine. We have had no rain. That is why the pond has gotten smaller and smaller. But where are the ducks? Asked Martin. They've flown away to look for another pond, said Martin's mother. Will they come back? Asked Judy. We must wait and see. We must wait until it rains. Do you think it will rain today? Asked Martin. Martin's mother looked up at the sky. She saw that it was blue and bright. She saw no clouds at all. No, said Martin's mother, I don't think it will rain today. Judy and Martin's mother turned around to go home. Judy and Martin were wondering where the ducks had flown. They were wishing it would rain. Over the wall they went, climb, climb, climb. Couldn't we make it rain? Asked Judy. No, said Martin's mother. We could not make it rain. Up the hill they went, step, step, step. Couldn't Daddy make it rain? Asked Judy. No, said Martin's mother. Daddies cannot make it rain. Can policemen make it rain? Asked Judy. Can firemen make it rain? No, said Martin's mother. No person can make it rain. Down the hill they went. Run, run, run. Why can't we make it rain? Asked Martin. Because we cannot make clouds come. Because we cannot make the winds blow. When will it rain? Asked Judy. When the winds blow the clouds over our heads. When the clouds spread out over the sky, then it will rain. But I don't know when that will be. Judy and Martin's mother were coming near the two little white houses where they lived. Martin's mother went into the house. Martin and Judy walked up and down the yard. They looked at the sky. They wished it would rain and fill the pond full. They wished it would rain and the ducks would come back. Judy and Martin looked up at the sky again. They saw it was bright blue. They saw no clouds at all. Judy and Martin knew that it would not rain that day. So a story from our UU community from 85 years ago. Stories for youth told in services even back then. So now let's join in our UU affirmation for youth. It comes complete with the hand signals, which I think everybody here probably knows by now. We are Unitarian Universalists, a people of open minds, loving hearts, and welcoming hands.
Each week, we pass the plate in order to both support our community and support a worthy community group nearby. This month, the July Share the Plate recipient is, it says Haven Hills, although in our in the e-blast, it talks about the West Valley Food Pantry. Well, it's going to be one of those. Haven Hills is a wonderful group that helps support families and women who are in family crisis and need support. And the West Valley Food Pantry regularly gives food and other supplies to people who are short of the necessities of life. Anyway, so we're going to share the plate this morning with one of those. And at this point, I ask the ushers to come forward and pass the little purple bags. Yeah, I was just trying to read something, and it wasn't in it.
I invite you all now to join in a spirit of prayer, meditation, or just simply contemplation. Settle into your place. Find a relaxed position. Close your eyes if you choose. But open to each other, to the space around you, and to the wider world beyond. And as we gather in this contemplative spirit, I want to share these words from the great Unitarian minister, Theodore Parker, from 1859. I count it a great good fortune that I was bred among Unitarians and thereby escaped much superstition. But I felt early that the liberal ministers did not do justice to simple religious feeling. To me, their preaching seemed to relate too much to outward things, not enough to the inward life. Certainly, they preached the importance and the religious value of morality, good works, the test of true religion, were implied in their sermons. But yet, while they had this great practical excellence, so obvious then, I thought they lacked the deep internal feeling which alone could make it lasting. Certainly they had not that most joyous of all delights. This fact seemed clear in their sermons, their prayers, and even in the hymns they made, borrowed, or adapted. Most powerfully preaching to the understanding, the conscience, and the will, the cry was ever, duty, duty, work, work. They failed to address with equal power the soul, and did not also shout, joy, joy, delight, delight. Each week, as we join in this contemplative, prayerful spirit, we open ourselves to the joys and concerns shared by members of the congregation and experienced by those beyond in the outer world. In our Book of Life today, Amy Noel writes, I want to honor the life of my mother-in-law, Shelley Schreiber, who had a stroke and passed away yesterday, surrounded by loved ones. We offer you our deepest condolences, Amy. In our virtual Book of Life, Susan writes, a beloved golden retriever named Gustavo, one of my doggy clients, passed away this week. It is ridiculous how much I miss him already. And to you too, Susan, we extend condolences. This is the 4th of July weekend, Independence Day weekend, and while we stay in this contemplative spirit, let's just take a moment, if you will, to reflect on what we value, what we prize, what we would hold up, what we feel we've lost. In the spirit that animated those who led the founding of this nation, the United States, those who've carried forward its enduring values enshrined in its founding documents as they have changed over time. What do we love? What do we prize? What have we lost? And what can we do to regain what is lost? In a moment, I'm going to sound the singing bowl. And when I do, I invite you to speak aloud into the space or bring forward in your mind, if you will, any names or occasions, joys or concerns that are on your heart this morning, knowing that they are heard here and online and lifted up. We draw strength from your joys, that we may help carry your concerns. Wendy, Greg. And now I invite Hap and Kevin to lead us in our sung meditation, Spirit of Life. It's number 123 in the gray hymnal. The words are on the screen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
In a moment, Tracy's going to share a reading with us. I want to just say something briefly about that. This is from a sermon delivered by the Reverend William G. Sinkford in Fort Worth, Texas in 2003. This is another one of those historic documents I'm sharing today. Tracy's going to read excerpts from that sermon. 2003 doesn't seem like it's historical, but this was a deeply challenging sermon, part of a series of sermons and essays shared by Bill Sinkford, who was the first black president of the UUA. And I think the excerpts will speak for themselves, and so I invite Tracy to come up and share Reverend Sinkford's words.
It's going to help if you shut your eyes because I am not a tall, handsome, bald black man, but I'll do my best. I went and reread the UU Principles and Purposes. As I reread them, I realized that we have in our principles an affirmation of our faith that uses not one single piece of religious language, not even one word that would be considered traditionally religious. And that is a wonderment to me. I wonder whether this kind of language can adequately capture who we are and what we're about. The principles and purposes have become an integral part of our denominational life. They serve us well as a covenant, holding out a vision of a more just world to which we all aspire, despite our differences, and articulating our promise to walk together toward making that vision a reality. Whatever our theology, they frame a broad ethic, but not a theology. They contain no hint of the holy. Many Unitarian Universalists I know are bothered by the use of the word God. I understand that. I was an ardent, some might even say a rabid humanist. If you had told me as a teenager that at age 56 I would be an ordained minister using religious language in the pulpit, I would have laughed out loud. But we don't have this all permanently figured out at any discrete moment in time. In my case, it was direct experience of something I hadn't counted on, a kind of direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder, which we affirm as a source of our faith tradition that changed my mind. It happened in a moment of crisis. My son had overdosed on drugs, and it was unclear whether he would live. I found myself praying. As the night darkened, I found the pure prayer, the prayer that asked only that my son would live. I felt the hands of a loving universe reaching out, the hands of God, the Spirit of life. The name was unimportant. I knew that there is a love that has never broken faith with us and never will. My son survived, but the experience stayed with me, and that is my vocabulary for that experience. Religious language doesn't have to mean God talk, but I do feel that we need some language that would allow us to name the holy, to talk about the ability of humans to shape and frame our world, guided by what we find to be of ultimate importance, a language of reverence. Perhaps this faith we love can call itself a religion. Religion, to bind up what has been sundered, to make connections in a world that would isolate us, to engage in the journey toward wholeness. Please join me now in singing hymn number 90, From All the Fret and Fever of the Day.
From all the fret and fever of the day, let there be moments when we turn away, and deaf to all confusing outer din, intently listen for the voice within. In quietness and solitude we find the soundless wisdom of the deeper mind. With clear harmonious purpose let us then bring richer meaning to the world again.
It's been 27 years since I first led a worship service. I stood on a mountaintop in the dark of a summer night, where 24 souls stood expectant as I prepared to lead them. Where? Full of apprehension and unaccustomed nerves, I began to raise my voice in the dark and paint with my words a universe on that mountaintop, calling together the 4 quarters of the unseen horizon into a circle drawn and sustained by love and trust, and welcoming into our company unseen yet familiar guests. Some of you may recognize, or perhaps can surmise, that worship service was a public ritual in the tradition of a Wiccan group. Most, if not all, of the participants were familiar with the components of that ritual, the order of service, if you will. More than just comfortable familiarity, though, each element of that ritual sparked emotional responses and resonances with other workings that they had gathered in. It served to foster an underlying connection among those gathered. And it was on that foundation of a shared understanding that I, as the author and the leader of the ritual, could introduce elements specific to the occasion and lead us towards the further work at hand. Okay, let me pump the brakes a moment and unpack that a bit for you. When I talk about a foundation upon which this particular worship service was built, what do I mean? What was I doing? As a practical matter, I'm really talking about tracing a circle around the participants, speaking words of invocation, making welcome all the elements of the world that surrounded them, offering prayers to a number of gods and goddesses familiar to most of them. In other words, without putting mortar to brick, I created a shrine and prepared it for worship. Familiarity with those actions of mine and their inherent symbolism allowed us all to sustain this unseen edifice of this sacred circle for the duration of the ritual. And while my ritual could no doubt have proceeded without the establishment of that sacred circle, assembling its elements in the minds of the attendees was part of building a shared intention to worship as a community. Now, as many of us are gathered in a physical church building, we may wonder at this feat of constructing an unseen sanctuary for worship. But what confers on this building, or any church, its suitability for the conducting of services? What makes it sacred space? Many churches, after all, including my family's Unitarian church in Milwaukee, make do with renting social club spaces for worship. For some religions, every aspect of the building, from its floor plan to its decor, is prescribed by tradition and the requirements of liturgy and even of theology. Take a Roman Catholic cathedral, for example. The architecture is determined by a system of belief which assigns a special kind of sanctity to the priest and reserves the altar, the forbidden land beyond the communion rail, to him and his actions. If a Wiccan circle reinforces an egalitarian participation in religious ritual, the Catholic Church enforces a hierarchy in worship. Beyond that, though, these physical settings for worship offer a contrast in the understood relationship of the worshipers to the divine. It's common in Wiccan traditions to practice a ceremony often called drawing down the moon, whereby the goddess is invited into the circle through a form of trance work. Conversely, the architecture of a classical Catholic cathedral with its elevated altar and its often vaulted ceilings emphasizes the transcendent nature and the awesome power of God. The setting for worship can reinforce shared beliefs and foster a sense of unity. Passing through the distinctive torii gate of a Shinto shrine in Japan clearly signals that the visitor has entered with others into a distinct and sacred realm. Another instance is found in the distinctive nine-sided architecture of Baha'i temples, an idiosyncrasy which marks them out from other places of worship. Now, Catholic churches can be found that represent many styles of architecture. I love the new cathedral downtown with its alabaster windows instead of stained glass. And a Wiccan circle might be held outdoors, as the one I led was, or in a living room, as long as the elements essential for worship remain in place. So, what about places that we Unitarian Universalists call home for our worship? Is there some sense in which the places in which we gather support or even serve to define our worship? As a youth, I joined my family in attending Unitarian Sunday services in a variety of settings. Most were called churches. At least one was a meeting house. And one was designed, by the way, by Frank Lloyd Wright. But as I alluded to earlier, the congregation my family belonged to longest met in a rented women's club. And although the venue was not purpose-built for Unitarian worship, and indeed not even for religious services at all, I think we felt most comfortable there. What should we make of that? The Romanian scholar of religions, Mircea Eliade, argues in his book called The Sacred and the Profane that religious rituals, very broadly speaking, are an occasion for a community to recreate their cosmos, providing a structure and an order to the world that transcends the chaos of our daily reality. Now, this isn't to say that a group of Christian fundamentalists meeting in a living room is literally reenacting God's creation. No. Rather, ritual can be a way to connect with an idealized reality, an opportunity to give place to those aspects of a faith that a community wishes to celebrate, advance, and perpetuate, including perhaps its vision for moral order. So, to my example, for a UU congregation meeting in a women's club, is there anything needed from the setting to make it suitable for our worship? Do we have a profoundly shared vision of the cosmos? Perhaps not. I sometimes think the first and only commandment of Unitarian Universalism is agree to disagree. UU worship really seems to only to require a candle in something like a chalice and something to light it with. Worship, of course, is less the place than the actions and the intentions within it. Wiccans gathered in a circle may join in chant or movement to raise energy in an attempt to effect magical change in the world. Christians may partake of the sacrament of communion to reenact the moment Jesus offered himself body and blood to his disciples at the Last Supper, transcending space and time to join with him now as they did then. In a Quaker meeting, sitting together in silence is an act of worship as the participants join in opening to messages from the divine, messages which may or may not come. The word worship derives from an Anglo-Saxon term meaning the giving of worth. Anything experienced or performed in a worship service is, in effect, declared to have a timeless and a universal value. So when we as UUs gather in whatever space, physical or virtual, we call a sanctuary for the purpose of worship, to what are we ascribing worth? What is or are that which holds universal value for us? For many years, our faith community asserted 7 principles held in common, although to my mind they never all seemed equally universal, let alone transcendent in character. At present, our denomination is in the process of, and in fact just voted on, reorganizing those principles into shared values, but has singled out love as foundational to them all. Is love the object of our worship when we gather on a Sunday? Certainly, love is a timeless and a multifaceted aspect of our existence as social and empathetic beings. And as UUs, we honor the capacity of all persons to exercise free will by enshrining our guiding principles and customary practices in terms of covenants, in which we all participate by consent. Various covenants bind us together in faith and ministries arising from that faith. Many of the actions undertaken by our various ministries take place outside of worship. And the seemingly secular, perhaps even sometimes political nature of many of our words and deeds, not only outside worship services, but even within them, raise for me the question of in what way they meet my own expectations for the content and the character of worship, which is to say, for me, of ritual. The anthropologist Victor Turner, in The Ritual Process and elsewhere, ascribes 2 overarching characteristics to group ritual. The first he calls communitas. The participants, on Turner's view, unite in a shared state of mind and perhaps even of being. I've just laid out the premises for shared values and intentions among UUs gathered for worship, but Turner looks for something more than agreement, for a group mind, if you will, or even more than that. The other aspect that Turner identifies he calls liminality, a passing of boundaries out of the mundane life of the community and into a separate, special, and sacred reality in the ritual space. For some faith communities, the physical nature of their churches, temples, or shrines enforces the separation of what Eliade referred to as the sacred from the profane, which you might call also the secular or the mundane. When we take this voyage beyond Turner's liminal, entering into sacred space together, our intentions turn to the timeless, and I would say the awe-inspiring. We stand together in a setting where we may call upon those forces we need to empower us for our struggles in the chaotic, mundane world. In this place, here in our sanctuary, joined on Zoom, confronting the Holy Spirit, for a Christian, might prompt speaking in tongues. For a pagan, oracles might be proclaimed on behalf of ancient deities. The principles and purposes have become an integral part of our denominational life. They serve us well as a covenant, holding out a vision of a more just world to which we all aspire despite our differences, and articulating our promise to walk together toward making that vision a reality, whatever our theology. They frame a broad ethic, but not necessarily a theology. They contain, as Reverend Sinkford implied, no hint of the holy. Many Unitarian Universalists I know are troubled by the word God. I understand that. I still am sometimes. I was an ardent, some might even say a rabid humanist. Sorry, I lost my place. We can ask ourselves, do we, in all our diversity, truly avail ourselves of the gift of ritual worship? To gather in communion in a place beyond mundane concerns. I'm asking a lot of questions. And here's another it pains me to feel I have to ask. Am I leading us to the place I'm talking about with all these words of mine? And if we do pass into a place that is beyond the mundane, what do we as UUs encounter there? We've noted that our community enshrines love as the highest value, but we experience and express love in many dimensions in our daily lives outside of worship. Indeed, truly living our values suggests we must manifest love always. Our UU faith equally prizes diversity, it seems to me, not only of culture and status and affection, but of spiritual orientation and even beliefs. Bound by mutual assent to our covenants, we enter as equals into worship. But we know that we join with others for whom the nature of the divine may be expressed differently or not at all. From my perspective, it is just this which serves as an engine for worship in our beloved community. We seek out worship with other questioning souls because we need a special time and place to cast off the distractions of the mundane and affirm together that the universe, as well as the profound depths of the human soul, present questions that we all struggle to answer, although we feel we must. The cosmos is greater than each of us. And each of us, in knowing this, acknowledges mystery. As the transcendentalists, like our church's namesake, Ralph Waldo Emerson, sought to look beyond the boundaries they saw constraining the Unitarian churches of their time, boundaries of rigid rationalism and empiricism, for something more liberating of the human spirit, they saw each individual as part of a great unifying essence in the natural world that Emerson called the oversoul. They sought to place each of us, in relationship to just the sort of universal presence I mean here, and ineffable unity, to be sought by setting aside the merely rational and seeking inspiration. To set aside the prosaic and open to inspiration is to pass from one state to another. It is an act steeped in the liminality Turner describes, and it is supported by entering into sacred space. As we've seen, our Unitarian Universalist tradition offers no rules as to what that space might be or where it may be. We only require that it be the proverbial big tent, a place where all are welcomed as equals, no matter what has brought them there, including online. And at the risk of straining my metaphor beyond the breaking point, like the circus big top, we should enter expecting to find joy and play, as Theodore Parker implied, and sometimes fear. But above all, wonder and inspiration. It seems to me that confronting timeless, intractable questions in such a place is what defines our worship in its purest expression, when worship is not merely education, guilty as charged, or therapy. And furthermore, the knowledge that we all have chosen to take time to gather humbly as mere human beings in the face of simply mystery reinforces our covenant to affirm that each of us bears equal dignity and worth. and as mystery reflects back to each of us our relentlessly questioning spirit, so too we are all reflected in and united with those with whom we have gathered in love and trust to worship together. At this point, we would often sing a hymn. And as we started with something different, I want to try to end with something a bit different. So each of you, hopefully all of you, placed a colored Lego in that bowl. I'm going to invite Tracy to hold it up so you can see the mosaic I talked about. Do you remember what color you chose? Let me hear you say it. What color did you choose? What was that again? Say that again. Keep saying that. Say it again. On Zoom, if you want to type it, you can type it or just say it. What color? What color? Now I'm going to say, keep saying it, and I'm going to say together. Say your color. Again. Again. Say together. Say your color. Say together. Say your color. Say together. Say your color. Say together. Keep it going. You can do it. Keep it going. Let's keep chanting while I give some acknowledgments and thank yous. Keep it going. Your color and together. Let's hear it. I want to thank my worship associate, Tracy. I want to thank Adam and Conrad in the tech booth. Margaret for setup and others who've helped her for our potluck afterwards. And you're all welcome to join us there. Lynn, Louise, Linda at the welcome desk. Keep saying it. Let's go. You can do it. You can listen and talk. I want to thank my partner, Deb, who's here today, for helping with setup. And I want to thank my sister, Wendy, who many years ago gave me as a present the 2 volumes of the documentary history of Unitarian Universalism. I recommend those books a lot. They were the source for much of the words I shared today. Let's hear it again. Your color and together. Louder. Color. Together. Keep it up. Keep it up. Keep it up. Until I extinguish the chalice. Let's hear it. Keep it up. Color. Together. Color. Together. Keep it up. You are all together. And thank you for doing that. Our chalice is extinguished, and this worship service is ending. Before we end, I would close with these words from Thomas Starr King from 1863, namesake of one of the seminaries for the training of our UU ministers. In his Lessons from the Sierra Nevada, Thomas Starr King wrote, "The great bane of modern life is materialism, the divorce of spirit from power, order, bounty, and beauty in our thought of the world. We look upon nature as a machine, a play of forces that run of necessity and of course. We do not bow before it with wonder and awe. I believe that if on every Sunday morning before going to church we could be lifted to a mountain peak and see a horizon line of 600 miles enfolding the copious splendor of the light on such a varied expanse, or if we could look upon a square mile of flowers representing all the species with which the creative spirit embroiders a zone, or if we could be made to realize the distance of the earth from the sun, the light of which travels every morning 12 millions of miles a minute to feed and bless us, if we could fairly perceive through our outward senses one or two features of the constant order and glory of nature, our materialistic dullness would be broken, surprise and joy would be awakened. We should feel that we live amid the play of infinite thought, and the devout spirit would be stimulated so potently that our hearts would naturally mount in praise and prayer. Our chalice has been extinguished, but we carry it in our hearts. Go forth in the spirit of love to do the work of justice. Let it be so, and may you all very blessed be. Amen.